Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Time Podcast. We are coming to you live after the results of Game 3 here in the NBA Finals. The Pacers getting the win over the Oklahoma City Thunder in what was a great game the whole way through, 116 to 107. The Pacers getting the win in this one. The top scorers on both sides. You had J Dub with 26, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 24, and Holmgren with 20. On the side of Indiana, Bennedict Mathurin with 27 points as the leading scorer for this Pacers team. And then you had Halliburton with almost a triple-double, 22 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists, and then Pascal Siakam with 21, 6, and 4. He wasn't a leading scorer. Well, he actually was. He was the fourth leading scorer. But his energy and what he did in the other categories, I got to bring up his name, T.J. McConnell, 10 points, 5 assists, and 5 steals. A big game from T.J. McConnell. I want to show some love also to Alex Caruso. He had a pretty good game as well. He kind of played kind of like McConnell. You know, he had like 8 points. He had some steals and stuff like that. I'm not saying he was exactly like McConnell, but their stats are pretty similar in this game tonight. And I want to start off. Darrell, first off, thanks for joining me on the recap here for this game. I want to get your quick thoughts, and then I'll go into what I was going to say. I want to give you something to say before we go into it.
Well, just respond to some multi-text back and forth with a bunch of people.
He's calling people out.
No. I don't do it.
Okay.
No, I don't know. It's 2-1, not 4-1. So one of the things I liked was this, right? So we've been, after game 2, all I heard was Tyrese has got to score 30. He's got to do all these offensive things. Not one person can give me a snapshot of them talking about his defense other than me. It starts with his defense. He had 3 block shots. I think he had 4 steals. He's playing the passing lanes, and he's showing, the effort. I've said it, I think, countless times. He's not Gary Payton. But if he shows the effort, that triggers the offense. Yeah. I think he took, if I remember right, he took 17 shots, 22 points. I want to say 9 assists and 8 rebounds or something like that.
9 rebounds, 11 assists.
That starts the thing, right? Because the other players have to play. Tyrese scoring 30 to 35 isn't a winning combination. I don't care what anybody says. Mm-hmm. Where that sweet spot where he was tonight, with Ben playing well, especially with Turner not shooting the ball well. I'm only going to say shooting the ball well because he played well. He played great defense. He had 5 block shots, a couple of tie-ups, and especially a big block on the 7'1" Chet Holmgren on a 3-point shot late in the game. Made him eat it without swallowing. So I like that part about what happened with regard to the team, right? And I like the fact that they didn't say, okay, well, we've got to outscore this team. Yeah, of course, to win, you got to outscore a team. That's an easy call, right? But I like what they did on the defensive end versus just looking for, jacking up a bunch of threes. I think they shot less than 33s tonight, by the way, as well, too.
Oh, you're okay. They shot they shot 27 threes tonight. The Thunder actually shot better from 3, but it wasn't by much. They actually shot one more three. They made one more 3 than the Pacers did tonight, and they shot 45%. Pacers shot 33%. And if you go back to what I said in game 2, I never said he's got to score 30 or something, right? I just said I want to see him be more aggressive. And in that scenario, it was just because everyone else around him literally could not make a shot in that game 2, it felt like. And I even said it downstairs, and I kind of said it after we got done recording when I was just talking to people about the episode. I was like, they probably still wouldn't have won, but I probably would have been like, okay, the star player was trying his best and nobody else could score. You lost the game. Oh, well. So I don't think they would have won still, but I'm just saying I wanted to see a little more. And tonight, well, I got a little more and a little more than that to see, because I got to see Halliburton do what I wanted him to do in game 2. And not only that, I got to see Bennedict Mathurin have one heck of a game with 27 points. I've been a big Mathurin supporter. I think when we last talked about Mathurin, I was like, maybe they need to trade him because he's not doing the best and whatnot. But I've never not been a supporter. I just said I could see the Pacers hypothetically moving him depending on the Miles situation or whatever happens this
That's still in
offseason.
play. That's still in
Yes, that's
play, by
still
the
in
way.
play.
Absolutely, is still in play.
And for me, it was great to see Mathurin score tonight, but Halliburton very aggressive. I was at work tonight, and I was at work for the first half, and I actually had the game on while at work. And I want to give a shout out to my manager Christy. She was watching the game with me. She never told me to turn the phone off, so I was working, and we were just watching the game. We're also having a remodel too, so there was like workers coming by watching the game. Everybody was tapped into the NBA Finals at work, so.
Okay,
I want to
okay.
give her a shout out for letting me watch the game during work. But other than that, to get back into the game though,
Yeah,
I thought it was a great game from Indiana, and I thought it was also a great game from OKC all around too. Chet Holmgren, he really came to play tonight. J Dub played really well as well. But on the Indiana side, Halliburton did exactly what I wanted him to do. Not get 30 points or nothing like that, but to score and be aggressive. That floater I talked about in the last episode, I said he needs to do that in the first couple of quarters because every time I got to see him do that floater, I didn't even have to think about it. I'm like, well, there's a bucket, there's a bucket, there's a bucket. It's just like that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander turnaround mid range. It's green every single time. So that's why I love that he does it because it was dropping. And then yes, obviously I got to give some props to TJ McConnell. He's an absolute. I mean, if you could describe a lightning bolt in a human being, that's probably TJ McConnell. I mean, he made Gamebridge the loudest it could have been that tonight. I give big props to TJ McConnell on that. But I think the other thing, and I think you pointed out Halliburton's defense. I think the Pacers' defense in general, the improvement there from game 2 to game 3, and I'll even say game 1 was
yeah.
just there tonight. It was just extraordinarily there, and I people are talking about the effort on both sides too, right? And I think for me, I still feel like OKC throughout most of this game was showing more effort, if that makes sense. I think there was just certain times in the game where I'm like, man, it feels like OKC wants this more than Indiana does. But that's to counteract and say when we got to this fourth quarter, it felt like Indiana was all gas, no break. They were not
Right.
letting anything up. I think the fouls were a little tacky at the end there. There was Halliburton had a drive where he got fouled, but then J Dub
He
got
got
the
hacked. He got hacked.
J
So
Dub yeah J Dub got the rebound, but then they called it on Neesmith. It was but other than that, it
well,
was a really good fourth quarter from the Pacers, and I think all around the hustle from Indiana was there. I just think at times OKC, I mean, it was just back and forth.
well, I wouldn't give OKC any more credit than the Pacers from an effort perspective. I mean, the Pacers fought their asses off for this game. Those guys left everything on the floor because they realized the importance of Game 3. You go down 2-1 to the best team in the league. With determining that they're going to go back to their home in Oklahoma City with the best player in the league with the MVP. You got to play desperate. You saw TJ come out there with a fire he hasn't had probably since the Milwaukee series. He made plays after play after play, steals, uh, teardrops, those type of things. That's why we talked about the team, not the player individually, the team.
Yeah.
So collectively, you got a team of guys, two guys that came up and played big in the box score that no one was talking about after game 2. No one talked about Turner. No one talked about TJ, and so all the conversation was about how Tyrese needs to play better, needs to score more, needs to do. Pascal needs to do it. Pascal was his regular self. I don't have his box score, but I'm guessing he probably scored 18 points tonight. I'm guessing based
It's
off of what I was
20.
looking at.
I think it was 20.
Right. My point, and this is off of memory, off the top of my head.
No, you're
But
good.
the point I'm making is they're a team. They've got 5 guys that have made a difference in the series so far in 3 games. You can't say that for OKC. Shea is going to be Shea. He's going to be he's continually be a hell of a player. Williams played and shot well tonight. You got Holmgren. The last 2 games, Holmgren has played well, but I really want Hardenstein in the game more. That's the Pacers' best advantage in the front court when Hardenstein is in the game. That
Yeah.
opens things up because again, he still doesn't want to go out and pressure the three. He doesn't want to close out. And the Pacers have seen that and they took advantage of it again. The thing for the Pacers is this: what can you do on Friday night to match the effort that you had tonight? That's the question.
Yeah.
If the Pacers, if the old saying, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his, what so much. If the Pacers can give the type of effort tonight that they gave, regardless of what Oklahoma City does from an effort perspective, the Pacers will probably come out as a victory because they seen what Oklahoma's done. They seen the sagging, the switching. In the first half, they switched Dort and Williams on Tyrese. It was almost like in 5 possessions. They went back to back to back. They switched, right? So people were saying, well, Dort's locking him up. Dort's not covering the whole game, man. But that's just fodder, right? I like what I saw tonight out the team. I like what I saw the effort, and I like what Rick Carlisle did in calling those timeouts. Mark was saying, man, they've only got 3 going into the second half. But you don't, hey, listen, empty your tank because if you can stop a run with a timeout and
Yeah.
draw up something great, that's much more valuable than one timeout towards the end. And just what? I think the Pacers had 2 timeouts left at the end of the game.
Yeah. It was a good game. I mean, all around, it was a good game. And I know we live in Indiana, so I want to try to give some credit to OKC as well. I think it was both game on both sides. I think both teams
Yeah.
did a really,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
good
They both
job.
fought. They both
Yeah.
fought. You
No,
got you got to give Oklahoma City credit. You can't discredit them because that just if you discredit them, that just means you didn't watch the game and you're just
it,
a person who doesn't care about the
and I think
basketball
when you
piece.
look at it too, I think the Pacers, coming into the night, even regardless of how game two went, you even look at game one. I mean, I think this Pacers team had something to prove. And Nick Wright I saw a stat from Nick Wright where it's like before game three tonight, it was in the 96 minutes that have been played in the NBA Finals, the Pacers have only led for 2 of those minutes. And I look, I think it's a stat that you can look at, and even as the team and just everyone in general, where it's something you got to look at, and it's something to pay attention to. So I think for the Pacers, there was this, and even on my side, especially with the way I was acting after game two, I think there was a sense of urgency to not only keep up with this OKC team tonight and not be down 6 most of the night and whatnot. So to see them go back and forth with OKC tonight and come out with the win, I think that's what a lot of people, whether you're a Pacers fan or media or whatever, I think a lot of people, including myself, needed to see this tonight where they were going back and forth and getting the lead and then trading the lead back. I think we needed to
Right.
see this tonight because in
It's fight,
OKC,
man.
they
It's fight.
couldn't get to the lead. And granted, they won game one. Like I said,
Well,
they
they
earned
did. They
game
got to the
one.
lead. They
They
got to the
earned game
lead, but
one.
but it was back and forth the whole game. It wasn't. No team took a
No,
stranglehold
I
of the
know. Yeah,
game,
yeah,
and I think that's the thing. I think Oklahoma City's biggest lead was 8 or 9. Pacers' biggest lead I think was 9 as well. So
yeah,
it was a back and forth game. Two teams that were fighting and realized the urgency of what was going on there, right?
yeah,
I think one big call was the Neesmith lack of flagrant on Caruso when he on both feet he goes to the basket, he lands on both feet, but he throws himself on the floor. He's acting as though Neesmith tried to break his arm or something, and they don't and correctly they don't call a flagrant. He didn't wind up. He didn't
No, it
follow through.
wasn't.
He
Yeah,
tried to wrap him up, right? It was an absolute foul. I give you that 100%. But that's what I don't like about as we see as guys stay on the floor to try to create the narrative of, oh my, he really clobbered him. And again, I don't know what they were saying on television. I'm sure they were screaming for
no, 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 no,
flagrant
no, no.
two
You're
or
gonna be
whatever the case may
shocked. It
be.
was not. They did not agree. It was a flagrant at all. They
Well,
did
well,
not.
well, we'll find. We'll find. Good for them.
They
But
didn't.
again, they
I
they
get what
they,
you're
they
saying,
use their
though.
eye. They use their eyes. So that was a big play because he had to go to the line and earn those two. But the other thing, let's talk about this. We talked about how not we people talked about how OKC has worn down the Pacers. Pacers
Mhm.
wasn't missing free throws in the fourth quarter.
They were great, and
They were.
I give props to
Oklahoma City
Pascal
was.
Siakam.
Oklahoma City
I
was.
give props to Siakam because we've talked about it a little bit. Siakam is a guy that goes 1 for 2 most of the time at the line tonight. he only missed one free throw out of all
Yeah,
this game
yeah,
tonight. So big props to
yeah,
Siakam as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, that says he's putting in some work, right?
Yeah.
And for me, we talked about how Oklahoma City is 11 guys deep. They've got the best player in the league, and I believe that. Um, your depth didn't win you that game in the fourth quarter, and I would be willing to bet you bench play scoring. I'd be willing to bet you the Pacers scored 40 points off the bench, and I'd be willing to bet Oklahoma City scored less than 10. That's just my off the top of
What,
my head.
tonight?
Yeah.
The bench had like 14 when there was like 3 minutes left in the fourth. That was a stat that
Who?
I saw.
Who?
OKC.
Okay, I thought you
Yeah,
said
the Pacers had like
I,
46 off the
yeah,
bench.
yeah,
OKC had
yeah.
like
They
14 or
outscored them.
something. But
They outscored them
that
by
was in like
30.
the middle of the fourth quarter.
But my point being, they outscored them by 30.
No,
There's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
talk
yeah,
on
yeah.
both sides. I was listening to ESPN rate, not ESPN. I'm sorry, NBA radio today on XM86, and I kept hearing. I was taking care of some business. Kept hearing, oh, how deep their bench is and how they're going to wear the Pacers down. I mean, listen, I'm listening to these people who clearly haven't been watching the Pacers all year, and I get it, fine, so be it. Small market, they're not a sexy team, got it. But man, if you're gonna be on the radio talk, you gotta know what you're talking about. Talking about they're gonna wear the Pacers down and they're gonna, and they're gonna do all these. You gotta be if you're gonna call it, you gotta call it balance, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know, just say you don't know. But listen to these guys on the radio, I'm thinking, man, Pacers shouldn't even show up tonight. There's no chance they've got. Now it's gonna be hell on Friday night, I tell you that. It's going to be hell Friday night, and that's why I say, what do the Pacers bring on Friday night? You get this win out of your system, and you start preparing tomorrow morning first thing for Friday night.
Yeah, you got.
Because that's going to be a fight. And my last part about that,
Go ahead.
what I like about this series is there's been no shenanigans. No shenanigans, but guys,
It's just been hoops.
acting like they want to fight and all. They just hoop,
They're
man.
just
And
hooping.
other than Shea hitting, Nimhart with that elbow
But that was
in the
nice
first
though. That
quarter.
was a moment.
Yeah.
That's a moment I'm not.
Well, that
That's
was
a
an
mo.
elbow.
That's
That was an elbow. And if Nimhart does that to Shea, there's probably a different type of call. Let's just call it like it is.
okay.
That was a
That's
clear
well.
elbow.
Well, to be fair, Nemhard did it back, and
No,
then
no, he didn't elbow him in the face. That's what I'm talking
what
about.
I'm saying is, I love that it happened because
Well, no,
the
no,
moments
I
that we
get
got
that.
afterwards.
I get that. What all I'm
Yeah,
saying is, let's just, other than that play, it was pretty clean. It's been
yeah.
pretty clean in 3 games. And
It's
that's
been
what you like because they
great
have an opportunity
basketball.
to play basketball, right?
Yeah. And
Now,
and that's for all the people that keep saying, "Oh, this isn't the ratings, the rate."
who
Somebody said it
cares?
on Twitter. Somebody said it on Twitter tonight. They were saying, "Ratings be damned." I don't want to hear it. This,
Who cares?
who
Man,
cares?
those people,
As a
those people who aren't watching the game, who
as a
cares?
basketball fan, why do
They
you? Yes, you. Why do you care what the ratings are for a league that's going to make almost eight
have no
billion more than
financial
that?
interest. They have no personal interest. It's you know what it is? It's clickbait. Hey, I'm following what they said on
Yep.
ESPN. There's no one wants to watch the game. If you're a
It's
Laker
fine.
fan, a Boston fan, or whomever, fine, don't watch it.
It's fine.
That has zero impact on what goes on that wood
And,
floor.
and I'm
It
going to
has
say
none.
this too. I'm going to say this too. The ratings nowadays cannot be true because
Yeah.
people can find these games illegal. Like
Option.
we can call it like it is. Illegal
Look,
streaming
hey,
is a
look,
real
look,
thing.
look, 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 look. I was watching a little bit when I had take a little spot. I was watching it right here on my phone.
Like
And believe me, I don't have any of those cable services on this phone, if
there,
you know what I mean.
neither do there's more people not watching it on cable than there is on cable. Like let's put it like it
Yeah,
is. If you could
yeah,
find those viewers, it's
yeah,
probably in the teens if you had to guess. But
yeah.
there's one tidbit that I want to talk about
Hmm.
because I know the media won't bring this up on First Take. I know the media won't bring this up on Get Up. The media is not going to bring it up at all. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had 0 points in the fourth quarter. I went back and looked. On when the last time he scored in that game was. I had it pulled up, but it refreshed. The last time he scored was with 2:18 left in the third quarter. It was a lead taking 2 point shot in the third quarter. That was the last time Shea Gilgeous-Alexander scored in this finals game. I'm not gonna I'm gonna bash him a little bit because I know the media won't, and I did the same thing with Halliburton in game two. So it's only right that I say this for the MVP to be scoreless in a fourth quarter that was this tight, I mean, he didn't even get the ball. And I'll credit the Pacers defense, but as the MVP, you should be able to get the ball off a DHO or something to have the ball in your hands and go make a play. Because even then, he didn't ask for the ball. He didn't call for the ball, and he had 0 points in this fourth quarter in a game that they still could have won in certain moments. When the Pacers had two back-to-back turnovers in the fourth quarter, that's the moment right there that the MVP of the league should have the ball and cut this lead down to 6 or whatever the score was at that point.
Do
So,
you,
and I know the
do you,
media won't say nothing about it either.
do you think I think it's because of Williams.
J-Dub?
Williams is playing out Williams. Jay,
No, you're right. It
he
is
was play,
Williams. Okay.
he was playing great.
That's fair.
And do you take the ball out of his hand and give it to Shea? I mean, he's scoring, right? The name of the game is scoring, right?
That's fair, but
You
in
know,
12 minutes, the MVP doesn't score. Like if this was anybody,
how many points did Williams score in the fourth quarter? I don't know. I'm trying to find it now.
I have to look.
I'd be willing to bet that he scored at least 12 points in the fourth quarter.
No, he had
I'm
a
guessing.
layup. He had a layup and a floater.
Williams, he had four. He
Yeah,
must
he
have
had
done his damage
four.
in the third quarter. Okay, but to that point, so okay, so it wasn't Williams. So what do we attest it to then?
I'm attesting it to Shea. I'm gonna do what the media does with everybody else. I'm gonna say Shea was scared. Shea was this. Shea was that. Because if this was
So
any other,
we
if
don't give
this was
those Pacer players any credit
what
for helping out on defense.
What did Ramon say about we need the clicks? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say it because if this was anybody else, if this was Jokic or no, because you know what, they didn't say this about Jokic in his game 7 against OKC. If this was Steph, if this was LeBron, if this was Kevin Durant, if this was any of those three guys, it would be hellfire and brimstone. Skip Bayless would be on LeBron, Stephen A would be on KD and Clay, Bob or Mad Dog Russo would be saying Bob Cousy's better than Steph and Curry. Like let's keep it let's talk about it. If Shea had 0 in the fourth quarter and it's not going to get brought up once tomorrow on the
Well,
national
I'm sure.
media.
Listen, I'm sure somebody's going to bring it up to try to act as though they're balanced, right? But it's not about them taking a dig at Shea. They're trying to show that hey, I've got to act like I'm balanced. But look at this. We talked. Oklahoma City should get all the credit in the world for being a strong defensive team. But I'm gonna share this. Pacers 24 assists, OKC 16. Pacers 11 blocks, OKC 4. Pacers 13 steals, OKC 6. Pacers 13 turnovers, OKC 17. What I want to hear, well, I won't be watching. So when you watch it tomorrow,
I probably won't watch it,
I want you to hear them give Pacers some credit on the defensive end. That's what I want you to hear. I'm not going to be listening. I don't
listen. Honestly, I don't listen to it often either.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So we talk a lot. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of feeling involved. But just watch the game and see what happens. And I'm gonna tell you, is a much more evenly looked at matchup for me than others look at. And after 3 games, yeah, that's fine. I wouldn't care as a Pacer fan or as even if I wasn't a Pacer fan. It doesn't matter how long you have the lead.
Yeah.
It matters when you have the lead. If you have it at the end of the game, that's what matters. That talk of no, no, I'm not talking about. I'm just saying, period. Because I promise you, they were talking about it today. They're going to talk about it tomorrow. And again, it's empty calories to me. It doesn't mean anything. And even if it was flip flop, it would still mean nothing because who wins is 2-1.
Yeah.
All the other things to me, they just don't matter, man. They just don't matter.
And how about it? Pacers win a game 3. We talked about that on game 2. Remember, I brought that up, but I also said I backed myself up to make sure I didn't get put in the corner. I said
no,
that stat doesn't really matter. It's just something you can look at.
You absolutely did. And it's
I
funny,
saved
right?
myself.
Me and you are such a yin and a yang. When you were talking about they don't game 3. I could give a crap, man. But
as
to your
the
point,
host, I got to bring up some different points.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's why this thing is going to just go off the charts, right? Because that's important to you, right? And for me, I'm just being fair. You probably see my face. I'm like, I don't give
Oh
three
yeah,
blankly blanks.
I'm looking at every
You know,
time. Like you'll make a face, and then I'm like, all right, let me add something in
I'm like,
here to like balance it
but
out.
but
Yeah,
that's the beauty, right? That's the beauty because we're talking about this game as a Pacer fan. Yeah, you get your emotions involved, and you care a little bit more because as a fan. But then you step back a little bit and you look at it from a objective perspective, right? And I, like I said, these are the two best teams in the league right now. They the two deepest teams and the two teams that don't play, throw the ball in, five out, let's see what happens. So I'm hoping it ends in six. Because if it does, that means it ends at Banker's life. Um, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, excuse me. But again, it's so far three down. It's been solid, man. It's been solid, and let's see what happens. Pacers got two more games to go to
yep.
to win, and OKC has three. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting series. This has been some really good basketball to watch, other than game two. But games
Let me.
one and three have been really good. I mean, tonight was probably one of my. Obviously I was nervous. I'm rooting for the Pacers. Obviously, when we get on here, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, go
Yeah,
Pacers.
you gotta be objective. Well, see, you gotta be more objective than me. I'm not gonna have pom poms and saying we and I feel like they cheat. That's
Nah,
not
yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah, no,
But
I get what
I've
you're
got
saying.
look at my background here. Listen, man, there's nothing but love right here. That
And
that that's a given.
I think tonight it was definitely, if there was any concerns about Indiana throughout the first two games, I think a lot of that could be rested tonight. And I think
Hmm.
the questions that I had for the Pacers was definitely one, can they go back and forth? Can they? Because this is what annoyed me today. I was at work, and obviously the game was being played, and I would say, "Oh, they're down by six," because somebody would ask me and be like, "Oh, we've come back before." I was so tired. I'm tired. That's why I wanted them to go back and forth tonight because I was tired of hearing, "Oh, we can come back. We've done it all year." I didn't want to hear. I didn't want that. I didn't want to hear.
Yeah,
And
just play exactly.
it's
Who wants to be pulling all their hair out? Well, I can't speak about that. But who wants to be sitting there watching the game? You're 12 points down with 3 minutes to go in the
yeah.
third quarter. No, man, as a fan, you don't want people. I don't care what anybody says. If they say, "Oh, I love it like that,"
No, you
you got
don't.
a stick. You got a
I
stick sense of
I was
reality.
hoping
That's
they'd lead
no.
by 6 or 7 for the whole night, and every time OKC
Yeah.
would try to inch back in, they wouldn't get it. But I mean,
Well, that happened in the second half of the fourth
but
quarter, right?
but
That
I
kind
can
of it kind of
appreciate
happened that way.
I can appreciate OKC and what they do, because I said it early in this podcast when we were talking about the playoffs. I said this is OKC's title to lose. I said it very early on. I said they are the favorites. Obviously, I think we all. Well, actually, if you go back, I think I've been the only one that has stayed solid on OKC. Even that Denver series where you and Ramon picked Denver,
Yeah,
I stayed strong with the
I
Thunder.
remember pick, and I talked. We talked about the championship DNA when was Denver versus OKC, and I remember saying that on one of the podcasts on that Sunday. But
Mhm.
again, listen, it was a 7 game series,
No, no,
great
no, no, no. I
series,
agree.
and that's what you want, right? You know, I don't care about the rating piece, but one of the things I do care about is how basketball is perceived. You
Yeah.
know, people say, well, you're a Pacer fan, season ticket holder, you love the NBA. No, I haven't loved it because of
There's been
the,
times
the
I
history,
there.
the
Yeah.
histrionics, right? But this playoff has rejuvenated my care about
Yes.
the NBA. Does
Yes.
that mean that I'm okay with guys throwing themselves on the floor? No. Does
No.
that mean guys acting like they got fouled? No. But this, if you look at it, also these referees, man, they are letting these dudes hoop, man. I mean,
Yes.
OKC was very, very handsy again tonight,
So
very
was
handsy.
Indy. Indy was a
But
little
but
bit.
but with that said, Pacers were a little handsy tonight too. So
Yeah.
you got to call it both sides of the
And
fence, right? They were a little handsy tonight. There was a couple calls. I said, man, the Pacers got that call. Okay, fair enough. But if you look at it, there was a time in the end of the third quarter where the Pacers and the OKC Thunder had the exact same shots and makes at the free throw line. I think they were both either 16 of 19 or 17 of 20 at one point.
mm,
The way because Mark was talking about it, and the way the game ended, OKC 23 of 30, Pacers 19 of 22. That to me, when those shots were missed at the line, they mattered the most. And I
Yep.
think that, along with OKC wearing down at the end, the MVP, I think that was the difference at the end. First
And
3 quarters, TJ McConnell, Tyrese playing good defense, all those things. But in the fourth quarter, I think the missed free throws and OKC tiring at the end.
and go back what you were saying about the fouls and stuff like that. There was it was a couple games ago, and my stepdad was like, "How do you not get mad at these fouls?" And I'm like, "Because it's the middle." I'm like, "It's the second quarter." Like there was a
Yeah.
moment tonight where it's the layup where I told you where Halliburton got fouled, but there was no call. But then they called the
Yeah,
foul on Neesmith.
Dort hacked him, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that was that. Yeah,
and then they gave the foul to they let
Needs
William
and
they
Needs
gave
and it was a foul on Needs. But I give them that.
and
But
that's
they
and
missed the earlier call.
I
That's
told
it happened.
my and I looked at my stepdad and I said those are the type of fouls I get frustrated with when it's late like this and they're not calling it on both sides. If it's a blatant foul that they miss in the middle of the second quarter, it's like okay, it
Right.
doesn't. I don't care. Like most of the fouls that happen do not bother me, but when we're late in the fourth, it could be my Lakers playing or my Pacers playing, or it could be the Milwaukee Bucks playing the San Antonio Spurs. If I see a horrible call, it's going to frustrate me. And I also go back to this for a lot of people. If you go back to 2018, where Harden, Steph, and all these guys were getting 3 free throws at the line almost 5 times a game,
Man.
I can't get mad anymore about some of these fouls because it used to be way worse, like a couple seasons ago.
Well, you hope they continue with that track. That's what you
Yes,
want. You don't
yes.
want them to stop. So, like you to your point, 2018 probably was for me. I think
I did not
17,
watch that
18
season.
was probably the low water mark for me.
I did
So,
not watch
with that said,
2018.
what will matter is what does next season look like? Do you
Yeah,
continue with that track because the NBA has to do something? You're losing viewership. And I'm not talking about ratings. I'm talking about people caring about the league, right? Caring and wanting to be a part of that because they say,
yeah.
well, there only is going to be a handful of teams and a handful of players they're going to market. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back and go to the Pacers broadcast. I want to say it was in the second or third quarter. No, it wasn't in the second quarter because Mark didn't do the second quarter on the radio. Chris Denary did the second quarter for him. He allowed Chris Denary to do the
It's pretty
second quarter.
cool.
Yeah, not bad. But it had to be in the third quarter. Mark went on a little bit of a tirade about the NBA's failure and talking about this series. He says it's an abomination that they're not celebrating these two teams the way they play basketball,
Yep.
a fiery competitive series, and you're talking about ratings, you're talking about this guy and this guy because all what you're doing, you're marketing a few teams, and then he went on a tirade about Christmas. OKC did not play a Christmas game this year. You realize that,
Yep. No,
right?
I
Yeah.
just
So
think the
if he went on,
NBA
so you got that's a good. It's a good piece because he doesn't get sideways like that, right?
and we
But he
talked
did
about it.
tonight on that. Yeah. So it's pretty good.
We talked about it on Sunday, and I was and you I think you remember I was like, there's not a new face of the league yet because KD, LeBron, and Steph are still here.
Yeah.
But here's my
Yeah.
point. Here's where I'm going on this. They're still in the league, so there's not a new face. But that's where I think that's where the problem lies in itself because I
Well,
said it. I think I said it on Sunday though. You're only and Ramon said it too. You're only marketing those three guys. You're not
yeah,
marketing
but
everybody
that's the point.
else.
That's the point Mark was
Yeah,
making. You look at these teams. Think about this. You see the commercials from Oklahoma City when they dress like I don't know what they're dressed like. Anyway, whatever. That's today's culture. But they're dressed like whatever. You don't see any Pacers in in commercials because they're not a team to market. They want to market. They want to market New York.
I think
They want to
Hallie's gonna be
market
pretty
those guys.
marketable. I think
I'm
Hallie's
talking
gonna
about
get
the
more.
team. But
That's
see, you
fair.
even saying
Okay.
it. You're talking about the player. I'm talking about the team,
Well,
right?
we've
And
talked about this
unfortunately,
before, but I think players matter. I think okay. I know what you're getting at because I even brought up the quote on Sunday where Adam Silver wants the teams to be more important when it comes to like at the
well,
NFL. But I
they
think
do count. They count.
players play a part too. I think you got to find that
They
balance
play a
again.
huge part. They play. No, listen,
You got to
You and I
play.
are agreeing on that. They play a huge part. You
But no,
just
I
have to
agree with you. The
acknowledge it.
teams have to be back. It's got to be like the NFL. Like if the Chiefs and Eagles are playing, people want to watch that. It has to
Let
be
me ask
like
you.
that.
Let me. And again, this is a few years back. No one's called Seattle Seahawks a small market team when they were the Legion of Boom.
No.
They were being marketed, right? No one called the Indianapolis Colts when Peyton Manning was in his heyday a small market team.
And
No
they
one
talk
did.
about
No one did, right? Just
no,
follow me here. Am I
even
right?
well, even now,
So,
NFL
so
media, they talk about every team. They don't leave
that's
one out.
that's
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying,
yeah.
and that's the thing. Until they decide to make that a priority, what you get the feedback from people saying this is a boring series and all that. They're not saying boring from a basketball perspective because they're not basketball fans. They're saying boring because I don't recognize the guys that I want to watch play. That's what they're really saying.
And that is on the NBA's part, but I think it goes back to what we said earlier. There's not a lot of it's hard to measure TV ratings because a lot of people are not watching
Yeah.
this on cable.
Think about it, man.
You could add
Bro.
there's
Listen,
so many people you
this
could
look,
add if they
look,
aren't
man.
I'm
You
not gonna
follow
give
me. You what we talk.
I'm not
You follow me.
I'm
Come on,
not gonna
man.
give out where I watch the games because that could get them taken down. But all I want to say is I bet you could add I'm not. This number could be way inflated. You could probably add 10 million more people if you count the people
Yeah,
that are
come on,
not
man.
watching on
Think about it.
cable.
Think
Like
about it.
it's
Come on,
so
man.
to me, the ratings will never matter because most of the people are not.
That's what.
And the more these sports go to streaming services, it's gonna get way worse.
And that's why we, as a game time podcast, shouldn't talk about ratings
And that's why we don't.
because they don't matter exactly because they
But
don't matter.
we bring them up for talking points so we
Right.
can say what. So we can.
Correct.
Yes. So we.
And then but then we look at the product.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you this: people can say what they want. After 3 games, what's been the most competitive NBA championship series after 3 games than this?
This playoffs as a whole has been the best one since 2021. But if you want to look at it, if you want to look at the last decade, it is probably second place behind 2016. 2016 was very good with the 3-1 leads that were blown and like so. If I had
but
to
you
put
follow
it,
me, but you follow me though, right?
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
it's just good to see, man. Again, I mean, this is a great time of year to be a basketball fan, but even more importantly, a Pacer fan. But man, it's just good basketball.
Yep.
And I love again. I make the point again. I love the fact there's been no shenanigans.
Yep.
I
agree.
That is such a big deal. You got Shea and Nimhart doing their thing, man. But no one's punching anybody. No one's kicking
just
anybody.
Personal a little bit. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it should be personal because
I agree.
It's NBA Finals, right?
So,
yeah, I love it.
So we got less than a minute, so we're going to go ahead and end this one. That is going to do it, folks, for this recap of Game 3. We've got more content coming up. We've got the interview with Coach Hester dropping tomorrow, part 2, so make sure you guys check that out. Go Pacers, as Darrell wants to say, but that's going to do it, folks. We will see you guys next time for more content here on the Game Time.